Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Sue Coleman and I'm a technical consultant at Sage Australia. So today, Leverage Technologies have invited me to present the Sage Enterprise Management System. So it's the ERP software solution for larger businesses with complex requirements. So this is a demo webinar, so we will have a look at what the Sage Enterprise Management ERP solution looks like through a live demonstration. But before we get to this, I want to give a very quick overview of what organisations this solution is best suited for. First of all, what is Sage Enterprise Management and who is it for? Sage Enterprise Management is the ERP software that gives companies with complex requirements access to faster, simpler and flexible business management capabilities at a fraction of the cost and complexity of typical enterprise ERP systems. So what do we mean by complex requirements? Who are these companies? Now, just so you all know, I'm probably going to start referring to enterprise management as Sage EM or EM, as the whole name is a bit of a mouthful. EM is optimal for companies with more than 100 employees or an average of 30 ERP users in distribution, manufacturing or services. Companies with distributed or global operations, multi-currency, multi-language, multi-site warehouse requirements, but with a limited budget and technology resources. Companies who are looking for fast and affordable solutions to optimise financial, production and or supply chain management processes following best practices. Sage Business Cloud Enterprise Management also embraces the latest technology trends in the market, such as web-based UI, mobile apps, visual process flows, automated business processes, real-time business intelligence, and many other functionalities that help businesses improve productivity. And this is what I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. Just a little housekeeping before we start. If you have any questions, can you please submit via the Q&A tab, and we will respond to them at the completion of the presentation. This is just the agenda for what we're going to look at today. So I'm going to show you a quick business process, navigation and usability. We're going to look at a sales order process, plan to manufacture, purchase order process, followed by financials, and then some reporting, with a little bit of reporting in the middle of everything. First up though, I want to show you a business process outlining how a large amount of businesses currently operate, highlighting the areas that cause most of the common issues. So we all start with customers, and we all have an assorted customer base. So customer demand itself comes from a variety of places. It can come in via e-commerce, it can come in through telephone orders. You might have retail outlets or other businesses that you need to load information into Sage from. And as part of this process, it's really important that all the pricing rules are obeyed. Inventory levels need to be accurate, whether it's finished goods or components and raw materials. We need them to be accurate so that we can actually supply the goods that are to be sold to our customers. Tools enable visibility of the stock requirements. So MRP is used to aggregate the demand into time buckets, taking lead times and delivery dates into account. Production planning provides a view of work orders that need to be created and stock that needs to be purchased to ensure that delivery deadlines are met. Purchase orders can be raised on both local and foreign suppliers. Signatures for approval can be captured. There's also container and shipment management, allowing capture of the actual landed costs. The capacity scheduler allows views and management of the production line, ensuring we have enough capacity in the work centres to meet the demand. Managed by exception. Alerts for late purchase orders can be created and emailed to the relevant managers. Scanning can be used for movements through production and pick and pack functionality. There's also QA and full traceability using both lot management and serial numbers. So once our goods are packed, they can be dispatched. Route management can be utilised. Invoices can be dispatched with the goods or can follow on. Every financial transaction flows through to financials. You can use the business intelligence to check how your business is tracking. There's mobile solutions for Salesforce and expense management. Everything then being underpinned by Sage Security itself. So now let's have a look at the Sage Enterprise Management software presentation. Before we go there, can you please, if you have any questions, can you please just pop them into Q&A or chat, and we'll respond to them at the end of the session. So this is the first screen when you move into Sage Enterprise Management that you're presented with. Now, one of the things just to be aware of, I'm going to be working as admin, so I'm going to have access to everything that the system offers. The first screen we're going to be presented with is what we call a landing page. And in this particular instance, I'm being presented with a view of some of the KPIs and graphs that are going to be important to a CFO. So it's the CFO dashboard. So if you are the CFO and you log in the first thing in the morning, you want to be presented with a dashboard showing an overview of the company's financials. One of the other things is using business intelligence, we can tailor this view, highlighting exceptions, allowing immediate follow-up if you see anything that doesn't look quite right. Navigation itself can be role-based, so I'll just close this screen off. So what we have down this left-hand side of the screen is we've got roles, pre-configured roles that come with the system. We've also can navigate by using these buttons across the top here. So if we have a look, for instance, at an AR accounting manager, what we can see is information that's relevant to them. So we can see customers that have a credit limit that might need to be followed up, open items with customers that need to be followed up. And not only that, we can move to business process. So these are all the different business processes that an AR accounting manager might actually work with, and we can click on the buttons to move to them. One of the other things is that using the BI tool, you can also have a look at reports that are going to be relevant to that accounts receivable manager. So what we're seeing here is the accounts receivable dashboard. Again, can be presented when the accounts receivable manager logs into the system. And the important thing to note here that these BI reports and all obey the same security rules that the accounts receivable manager has. So you've got the security across the BI as well as across Sage itself. So let's have a look at another landing page here. That's a good one to work with. So we'll have a look at in here. And what we see in this particular landing page is that we've got different, again, we've got different reports and exception rules. We have a graph put in here also, as well as an external website. So you're also able to, if you have an intranet, you're able to include your intranet in here. This, my budgets, this little link here allows me to create a PowerPoint slide from this information. So if you do that export or create your PowerPoint slide, what you can actually finish up with, if we're just going to pop into PowerPoint here again and show you very quickly, this is an example of what that could look like. So this is that same information that we were just looking in Sage, and now we're looking at it in a PowerPoint. The power of this as well is that if you're preparing a board pack and you've got your reports and everything else, you can have a link into PowerPoint that allows you to refresh automatically. So you can do your work and then just do a quick refresh in PowerPoint, and you've got that information presented in PowerPoint in the format that in your graph format that you require. Just looking at, we'll just come up to the top here. If we have now a look at this particular project screen, this is a really good screen to demonstrate or to show you how these landing pages and what we call these bus stops can be utilised. So if you've got a new employee that comes into the system and you want them to make their training experience as pleasurable or as easy as possible, you're able to use pre-configured roles that are in the system, or you're able to set your own up. And basically it's just click on whichever you're doing. So here we've got MRP, which you can create a purchase order or a work order from. You've got a receipt if it's a purchase order. So this is just, first you do this, then you do this, then you do this, so that your new employee can actually just click on these buttons here and it takes them straight to the process or that they need to be running. Again, one of the easiest ways of working through the system also is good old favourites, which are throughout everything. So we have go to favourites and let's have a look at a product. I'll just explain this screen while we're looking at it. So here is a raw material or a product that I've brought up onto the screen. This left-hand side is all the different types of products that I have in my system. Now, because this works across many industries, there's a whole lot of different products in here. If you're searching for anything, you've got this funnel, and clicking here shows you all the different ways that you can search for information. Including you can actually set up your own search keys also to find items. This arrow here allows us to close that page off, so we're able to get a bigger view of the screen. What you see in the middle is the product that we're currently working on, and this again is across the whole system. So if it's a customer, you see the customer that we're currently working on. And then over on this right-hand side, we've got all this functionality and inquiries that are available for the current screen. And depending on where we are, these change. These are relevant and they change. So let's just have a quick look through the product itself. So this is identification, so it just gives us the name, 3 lines of description for name for those of you that have really long products. You've got grouping here, which can be used to provide reporting groups when you're actually doing reporting on the system. Management, we just move into the management tab. What you see here is that this stock item is managed, which means it's just movement tracked. So, the item comes in, we sell it, so we capture all those movements, and so we know what our current availability of stock is. Lot management, really important for companies that do food and beverages and have to manage lots with goods coming in and goods going out. For those companies that need to manage serial numbers instead of lot, you've got serial numbers that you can work with. You've also got, again, talking food and beverage very quickly, you can keep track of your allergens. And also, one of the things that's important here with use by date is that you can set that when a product reaches its use by date, if you've still got it in your warehouse either to be used or sold, you can automatically set the status to rejected. Or if it's something that you've just got to retest, in that case, you would set it this mode here to retesting. Units of measure, we have multiple units of measure within the system. So it keeps also you've got volume, so that if you're bringing products in from overseas, you're able to have a look at volume and work out container, whether you can fit it all into one container, whether you've got space left in a container. You've got multiple units of measure. So this particular item can come in, small quantities. It can come in a bag. It can come in a pallet. The last one we're going to look at here is, because this isn't a product that we're purchasing, we're going to just have a look at suppliers. You can have multiple suppliers for a product, and you can prioritise your suppliers also. You've got minimum purchase order quantities, economic order quantities, so the system will keep track of all of that. And also, while we're here, I just want products to show you product site very quickly. What we're seeing in this particular screen now is rules that can be applied. If you set up a product site, those rules can be applied across every new system that you put in that comes into this site. But more importantly, this is where we've got our QA or QC management. So in this particular instance, we're saying there's no control. But that's just allowing you, means that you can bring an item in, you can put it into QA. It can sit there until you've tested it, whether it's a visual test, whether you actually run a test across it, and then it can be moved into the warehouse. So Sage EM also has warehouse management, so you're able to, it can suggest where you should be putting items away, and it will tell you where to go and pick the items from. The other, if we look at usability, which is alerts and tasks, for instance, in the system, one of the good places to look at this is within the purchase workflow. So there's many pre-configured tasks and alerts that come standard, as well as you can change them and put your own in. So I'm just going to have a quick look at purchase workflow. This is telling me, as an administrator, these are my purchase orders that need to be signed. So what will have happened is I will have received an email letting me know that there's a purchase order to be signed. I would validate it or reject it, and then it would be sent, an email would be sent to the originator of that particular order. So, you know, these can be viewed as the landing page for the purchasing officer. And like I said, validated or rejected. If for some reason they don't see them or they don't respond, then escalation can occur and it can be moved on to the next person, which just makes sure that goods and services are not sitting in a bottleneck waiting to be signed. The next area that we're going to have a look at is sales orders, so sort of the start of the order to cash process. Just going to have a look at a sales order here. So as mentioned earlier, orders can be entered into the system can come into the system a number of ways. They can be entered, they can be uploaded in various formats, as well as, some of you may use EDI, particularly if you're dealing with the majors. So what you're seeing here is the front screen of a sales order. So the only way they come into the system, they presented in this particular format. And also, if anything is uploaded, there's validation that takes place and reporting, so that if there's any exceptions and they haven't loaded correctly, you know straight away what they are, or if there's price differences, compared to what you've got in the system for the customer to what they're actually saying it should be. We have a look at delivery here. What we can see is that we can start to do some route management. So how do we load our trucks? Is it our trucks? Is it a different company that we're using? What needs to go on first, so that, we've got the first delivery loaded last into the truck. We also have over here the dates for required delivery, as well as if there's a time that we say we're going to deliver around 8 a.m. in the morning, then you're able to put that into here as well, so that's taken into account. There's also some of the rules around this particular customer. Do they allow partial delivery? Do they want an order complete? They don't want anything put on back order. Invoicing is where the terms come in. So we're saying in this particular case, it's we want to be paid 30 days after the invoice. And also there's analytical rules down here, which we'll talk about when we get to the financial part of the system, but this is to allow analytical reporting. And lines itself, this is where our items are, so within the system. So you've got your rules, you've got your pricing, your costs, and the actual, how much it is, margins and everything on the particular order. So we move on from invoicing and start to look at the plan to manufacture side of the software. So as we spoke about, demand comes from forecasts, sales orders, replenishment based on min-max levels and safety levels. And we look at make to stock, there might be make to order, engineer to order, configure to order. So you've all got different ways of manufacturing. But how do you know what to make each shift? Is your make to stock below safety levels? How do you know the quantity of raw materials that you need? How do you know if replenishment is required from a DC? MRP, so if you run MRP across the system, what it does, it looks at everything. It looks at what the demand is, it looks at what your stock on hand is of finished goods as well as raw materials. It can be across multiple sites. And it aggregates the demand into time buckets, and it takes lead times and delivery times into account. All right, so let's just have a look at a finished item. And we're going to have a look at a different item here. And what we're actually seeing is this is a finished item. So over here, you'll notice that we have ticks. So this one means that there's attachments to this. So there might be a document that has to actually go out with this particular product, or it might be a document, for instance, if it's a supplier, you might have a contract with that supplier, you would have that attached to that particular supplier. This one here is just telling me that there's comments. In this particular instance, the comments are just about the product itself, so that it's rustic raisin bread with bits and pieces in it. We'll just close that one off. You know, again, a good one for that is accounts receivable. If you've been discussing somebody's late payment, or you might even have a contract with a customer, then you have your contract attached here, and you may have some comments in here. So anybody coming in to look at this knows straight away that there's possibly something they need to have a look at. Using now this right-hand side of the screen, I can have a look at the bill of materials or recipe that sits behind this. Okay, and what I'm seeing when I look at this now is that these are my products. I've got an intermediate level here where the dough needs to be mixed. I've then got labels, or a bag and a label, and a box for these items. If I look at multi-level, this is going to give me a view of the complete bill of materials. And you can have many different levels, you know, many levels attached to it. So you've got your finished item here. We can see that this is dough mix. These are all the ingredients that go into this dough mix. From here, if we want, we can have a quick look at the routing and see that. So if we pop into routings here, what we can see straight away is that there's only two in this particular case. They're machine work centres. One is to form and bake the bread, and the other one is to package it. So from a costing perspective, we can actually cost every single one of these processes, or we can just, at the end of the work centre, just say at the end of the work order, we've completed this, and have all the components backflushed, and just have one standard cost set up for that particular work order. If we just come back into the front screen here, we've also, moving down here, we've got we can look at work in progress. So work in progress is just showing me all the demand, where all the demand from this particular item is coming from. And as you can see, you can do a graph of that information also. And we want to have a look at the work orders that currently exist, so we're able to see a list of the work orders. Anywhere in the system that you see this little box, it's an action box, and there's always things behind it that you can do. So in this particular case, we can look at the work order itself. So this is an example of a work order. You can see the product, you've got your components, you've got your operations, any of the documents that may need to be moving through the system with this item. And also we have this screen, provisional cost inquiry. And this is showing us where the costs for this item are being made up. So we can see that the majority of them are all material. And then, you know, based on your little colours here, you can actually see what the costs are, as well as seeing them down this left-hand side of the screen. So once you've run MRP and you've worked out your time buckets and everything else, you need to be able to see it, and you need to be able to manage it. That's managed through here. So we look into manufacturing planning and have a look at enterprise planning. And enterprise planning gives you many different views of how you want to look at what the suggested work orders are, what firm work orders are. The same with purchasing. Anywhere you see a screen like this, where you've got multiple selections, these are views that can be set up for different users. In this particular case, this is a view that I've set up so if you put me into a planning role, this is how I want to have a look at the work orders that need to be the suggested work orders. And I can also move from that into having a look what the suggested purchase orders are to meet that demand. Here, one of the things I really like is I've set up my rules, so I don't have to worry about putting anything in here. I've set up my rule, I can recall it in this called webinar in this particular instance. okay, and okay here. And what this does, this shows me straight away what the suggested work orders are. So as a planner, I can see, all right, these are the work orders that are suggested. I can look at the firm work orders. I can look at planned work orders. This particular view I wanted was just suggested. I can see dates that things should be happening on. And I've also got a message here. So we just close this one off. I can see straight away what the messages are. So some might be to cancel, to, like it says, delay firm horizon. Some of them are no action. And also they're sitting pretty at the moment. That's fine. As a planner, I can see the work orders, but also I want to know what needs to be purchased in order to meet this demand. You know, do we have enough stock at the moment or not? So what I'm able to do is just pop into the criteria that I used, take out this suggested work orders, run it again. And what I'm seeing now is that there's not only is there work orders, it's showing me what the suggested raw materials are that need to be purchased to be able to meet the demand that I've got. From here, I can use this little box again and say, okay, well, I want to group it. There might be a whole lot of products there that have to come from the same supplier, and I don't want to do individual purchase orders for each of those suppliers. So by going into grouping and removing the product itself off here, doing a search and reloading my table, I'm able to see that all these particular items come from the same supplier. So when I generate a purchase order, it's going to include all of those items on it. The other thing might be that, well, I happen to know that I can get milk powder from someone a lot cheaper for the time being, so I don't want to include that for this supplier. So by just clicking that, I've taken that off, and when I generate this order, it will be for these 4 items. It won't be for that particular item there. All right. So, you know, you on that screen before too, I don't know whether you noticed, but it was also giving me the demand for the intermediate product. So I've got how much of that dough mix needs to be made, as well as all the other, you know, work orders that are in there for the finished product. So the next thing that needs to be considered is, do we have enough capacity in the plant to be able to make, you know, make these products? To do that, I can have a look at the production scheduler. Okay. So what we're going to see here when it comes up is a heat map of across the factory, showing me exactly where the demand is and where the bottlenecks are and what I need to do to change things. So this is the example of the heat map. So here we've got our different work centres, what part of them are labour machines. When we look here, we can see that, all right, you know, it's sitting at 100%, orange isn't so bad. Here we're seeing that this one is over capacity, but we've said it's infinite, so that's probably not such a problem. Here we can see that this one's okay, and those that are still white, they're well and truly okay to keep working. From here, if we want to, we're able to have a look at, let's just say, an item code work order Gantt chart. So if we load this particular chart, what we're going to see here is these are the item codes, these are the work orders themselves. By clicking on that work order, opening this up, I get a lot more detail relevant to that particular order. As the scheduler, I'm also able to use drag and drop. So I'm able to drag and drop these around to sort of get my capacity where I want it. Once I've done that, I'm able to publish, and what publish does, it loads those new times back into Sage itself, which means that you don't have to go in and change any work orders. Following on from plan to manufacture, let's have a look at purchasing, because that's sort of the next step as part of this whole process. So we go into purchasing and let's have a look at an order in here. This is a really good example as well of the workflow that I spoke about earlier. So this is the first page or the header page of a purchase order. Over here, signature history shows me that I'm waiting on this user. This user could be my buyer, waiting for them to sign this purchase order. And as part of that flow, once they've signed it, in this particular instance, it moves on to someone else. So we've got this user, it has to be signed. Once that's signed, an email is sent to admin. Admin has to sign it as well. So once those signatures are in place, captured within the system, so it captures the person who signed, it captures the date and the time. So you've got full tracking. Companies that work in pharmaceuticals, for instance, that have to know exactly when things have been signed and keep well, everyone needs good audit, but they need to be able to track everything that's happened. So that gives them that really clear audit of any of their approval processes that they need to have in place. Also with purchase orders, I mentioned earlier that you can create your purchase order. You can start to do container management. So you can say, well, I'm putting this into this size container. Is it going to fill it completely? Does it leave room that I can add other products? It might be that you've got a little bit of space left, and rather than, spend, that money on that container when it's not full, it allows you to think about what else you might be able to purchase and get included in that particular container. Once you've got your container, you can place it on a shipment. So when the goods are being shipped, you get your bill of lading or you get your invoice from your supplier, create your shipment. And then as part of that shipment process, you can also capture all the landed costs, which gives you a really accurate view of the cost of those items within your inventory. Just moving through here quickly. So this is the first screen is the management. These are the lines that I'm bringing in on this particular purchase order. So this is where you've got your weight and your volume. You've also got your costs attached to it. So that sort of finishes off that supply chain distribution side of the presentation. And the next area I'm going to have a look at is financials. So if we look at the structure that you can use within the system, we're going to have a look in finance structure. What you're seeing here is an example of the complexity, or if you've got complex finances, this is giving you a view of it. So you might have a holding company. You could have companies in a number of different countries. So you've got your Australian legislation, UK, and the USA. Within those, you might have various different companies. And within those, you could even have various different sites. So Sage EM is multi-currency, it's multi-company, it's multi-site. All of these can be grouped up into a holding company. You can do intercompany transactions anywhere through this side of it. You can do inter-site transactions down here. So and the most important thing here is all of these sit in one actual database. So you don't have to log out of one company to look at another company. Once you're in there, you've got access to all your different companies. Intercompany transactions automatically create the other transaction in the other company. Options for intercompany transactions, you might have intercompany journals, intercompany invoices for suppliers. So, the goods are delivered to one company and the invoice is paid by another. Same with the customer, you've got intercompany invoices. You've got purchase orders created in one company, can create the sales order in the other company, as well as there's all the loan accounts. So there's full intercompany transactions across multi-currencies. It doesn't care what the currency is. You set this up and it will create the rules around it, create the different transactions. If we have a look at the accounting itself or the structure of the chart of accounts. So what you're seeing here is it's just sort of the traditional account structure. I don't think I've seen too many that large, but certainly where you've got your main account and then you have a cost centre and a market region and a product category, all forming part of your account structure. Sage works a little differently to that, or Sage EM works a little differently to that, in that we have the natural account. You know, that's the information, the finances that come out of your natural account is what the bank wants to see, or your financial institutions. They're not worried about your cost centres or anything else, but you are. So what we have is what we call analytical accounting. And what analytical accounting does is it tags, you set up dimensions, and when you do your postings, these cost centres and anything else that you might use here are tagged, and that information is captured. So basically in the background, you've got a financial chart of accounts, and then you've got your analytical accounts. So you've got your two different types of accounting and two different types of reporting. It's important to mention that budgets can be across both. So you can have budgets for financials, and you can certainly set up budgets as well for your dimensions. And the other thing with dimensions is it can be all sorts of things. It might be retail stores, it could be product groups, could even be blocks of land for housing developments where you want to know what the expenses are across each block of land itself. So we have a look at just some of the structure of these. If we pop into analytical pyramids here, you're able to set up pyramids for reporting. And this is just one little example. This was actually a farm layout. So the dimensions of these blocks, they wanted to capture costs against each block of land. So, you know, what was the fertiliser, you know, any labour that was going into the land, and then report on them. So that's one very simple transaction of how your dimension pyramids can be set up. The other area, from now talking from a finance perspective, you can also set up account pyramids. So instead of having to report in the traditional way of reporting all your expenses together and all your sales together, this allows you to pull in accounts from anywhere within the system that you want to see a particular type report on. So you can pull the accounts in, you can total them up into here, and then you can get a total across it. So in other words, you've got fixed assets, current assets, might be bank, sales ledger. You've got different ones here, they add up. So it might be that we pull something completely away from current assets into here that we want to include in this particular report. So we're able to do that, setting up these account pyramids. Having a look at some of the types of reporting options, I guess, and also around dimensions. If we want to have a look at a dimension balance inquiries, so we'll just have a look in there. So you've got inquiries, and let's have a look at dimension balances. This is another area where I've actually set up a memo that I can just recall for this. So if I do a quick recall, and okay, and what I'm seeing in this particular case now is the accounts and also what's gone against the expenses that have gone against my blocks. So you can see this is my account down here. This is my dimension itself, and these are because we've got sales turnover, so these are the sales so far, or the debit side of it, credit side of it, I should say, and then you've got your cost of sales down here and purchases. So look, it's just giving you a bit of an example of how you can set up and look at your different dimension reports. Closing off this page, one of the other ways of doing your reporting, throughout the system is just what we call financial data extraction. So we have a look at that, what we're able to see. So this is, again, a very small report that I've set up to show as part of this presentation. So we're just, again, going to go into financials, reporting. So there's a whole lot of different reporting here, and an inquiry on financial data extraction. Right. So this is showing one that I've set up previously, which is a statement of comprehensive income in this case. So I've just put revenue, cost of sales and gross profit. A very simple one. What you can do here, you can present it in a graph, or you can also do an Excel export in this particular one. Do the export. Okay. Have a look at Excel in here. Right. Have a look at Excel. So I just did that twice. Enable editing, and the data that's presented in this report is data that you can readily use. So it's in the correct format that you need it to be in to be able to work further with it. Once again, this information, if you're changing it within Sage through this button here, which is very similar to the one that was in PowerPoint, you're able to update this automatically. So, you've got a couple of things here that you can put more information into Sage, have it automatically updated into this spreadsheet. If it's a budget, for instance, what you would be able to do is export the current budget. If you needed to, change it within Excel and re-import it back into Sage so that the information is updated. If we pop back into our CFO dashboard, which is where we started, and had a look at the system. So this, as you can see, CFO dashboard is loading in here. So we're going to have a more detailed look at this at the BI tool. So I'm going to just close this one off. From here, again, obeying the security that exists for myself as the CFO. There's a number of areas in here that I can drill across and have a look at. So one thing I will just say here on the conclusion of this section is when we can have a Q&A session based on any questions that have been submitted throughout the presentation. So here I'm looking at all companies. I actually only want to look at one company. So what I can do is just choose one company only, and the system shows me immediately the information pertaining to that one particular company. So if you're having a look across it all and you think, well, I'm not sure how that company's been going over the last month, so let me have a look at that in more detail. That's a really easy way of doing it. You can also, we're looking here at, this is the AR side of things, so I can say, well, let's just drill down a little bit on that. I want to see the Accounts Receivable Manager dashboard with the same filters that I've put in place. So I'm only looking at this across the filters here. I'll look at that and I'm like, well, okay, create a drill through. I want to see the actual transactions, and this can go right down to the source document as well as part of this. So, you're able to do this. I could have looked at a sales dashboard from here. So this is now showing me the transactions that were relevant to that balance. I might say, well, let's have a look at the sales. Let's have a look at the sales manager dashboard as well. So not only could I drill back from the CFO dashboard, I can have it set up on a tab, and I can go straight in and have a look at the sales manager's dashboard. So this particular dashboard, when it comes up, is here. And as you can see, there's a whole lot of different dashboards that are existing here. So that ends my presentation of the actual enterprise management system itself. So if you do have any questions, I'm just going to have a look at the questions that may have come in, and let's, talk about them and respond to them accordingly. Are you able to manage complex pricing rules? So The answer to that would be yes, there's a whole lot of different ways of managing them, but I'll just go in quickly and show you some of the different options that you have for managing these rules. So let's go into sales setup and let's have a look at Pricely setup. So what you're seeing when you come into this Pricely setup is I want to talk to this side of the screen. These are a whole lot of different rules that have been set up in my particular database. So the first one, product price, is purely product price. So you put in a price here and that's the price that's going to be, things are going to be sold for. If we move down to T20, what we've got set up here is for this customer, this is what their product price is going to be. So that could be, it could be made up of a percentage, it could be a percentage discount, it could actually just be this is the actual price for that customer. Moving down T50, we've got an example here of there's a free other product. So if you buy these particular products, you get this product for free. Might be buy two, get one free. So that's an example of that. T502, which is the one that's highlighted, this is a forbidding rule. So this is saying, do not sell this product to that customer under any circumstances. So it might be that you've got a particular range of product that you sell to one of the majors. They don't want it being sold to anyone else. So therefore you set up forbidding rules that anybody else, and it might be that you've got it branded accordingly. So it means that it cannot be sold to anyone else. So there's complex pricing, there's simple pricing. So pricing is set up however you actually need it to be set up. Another quick question here. Okay, this is a little bit different. This isn't something that we've sort of looked at, but it's, are we able to capture non-manufacturing expenses for an engineer to order project, for instance? So, you've got your expenses that you're capturing as part of your work order and your bill of materials, but what about R&D and different options that you might want to catch? So here, I can show you this quickly. So we have a look at project management. So this is a way of managing those engineer to order type projects that, there's a lot more to them than just a normal work order. Financial overview is an example, a good way to look at this. Right, so this data is just going to load. So it's going out and it's having a look at the expenses that are there. Just go back one page and just see what, it's coming up. Right, and what we're able to see here is this is the view that we're looking at. So this is the expense overview. So for this particular project, I'm able to see the breakdown. So there's project management, there's R&D, there's some logistics in here. So this is your work breakdown structure. You've got your cost types in here, which we can just expand on and have a look at. And not only that view, we've also got the view that we can look at of revenue as well. Okay, as well as creating a view combining. So this one is now just going to, if I just do apply, this is going to then look at all the revenue transactions captured against it. So that's certainly how you would be able to capture your non-manufacturing expenses for an engineer type project. Right, you see here that we've now got the different view, which is the revenue view. Okay, and the final question at the moment that I can see is, how do you manage a customer that does business with several of my companies? So in other words, what you've got is you've got your different companies and you've got the same customer that purchases from all of them. Really easy process again, because you've got everything sitting in one database, so it's really easy to see that information. If we have a look at a customer record here, and so this is a customer that works with across all our companies. What we have is there's a view of this particular customer that is business partner situation. And what this is going to show is how much we have sitting in our books that this customer particularly owes us. And if we just look at, you know, one company, for instance, like let me just pull up one company here. Right, no sites. And if I just do a search here, this shows me that these are the outstanding orders at the moment for that company. And we can see that they owe $36,440. Now, we might have an overall credit limit of this particular customer of, say, $50,000. So at the moment, we look at this and we're like, well, they're okay, actually. We can keep trading. You know, they can keep trading with us. We're quite happy with that. But in reality, if I just change a couple of things here, and let's just take out the company itself. We can see that this is still our business partner up here. And if I do a search now, I'm able to see immediately that, oh, okay, they're actually at $472,452, which is way higher than what, you know, their credit limit should be. So I'm able to see, well, there's actually a bit of risk with this customer, so we need to start chasing some money with them. The other thing I guess that's important with part of this is because this customer is over their credit limit, at sales order time, there's a warning to say that this customer is over their credit limit. The sales order can be created still if you want, but it's put on credit hold. So it can't be filled or nothing can happen with that until it's actually been released from credit hold. That's it. So if I just going to pop back into my PowerPoint. Okay, and I'd like to thank you all for your attendance today. Thank you for the questions. They were good ones. So as mentioned earlier, Sage Enterprise Management is the enterprise resource planning software for organisations that need to streamline complex environments, including multiple warehouses and multiple entities, and make sense of all this information from a single dashboard, enabling running of the entire business. Sage Business Cloud Enterprise Management also embraces the latest technology trends in the market, such as web-based UI, mobile apps, visual process flows, automated business processes, real-time business intelligence, and many other functionalities that help businesses improve productivity. And I hope I've shown you some of those today. This does bring us to the end of the presentation. So I hope you enjoyed the session, and I thank Leverage Technologies for inviting Sage to present to you guys today. The recording will be emailed to you in the coming days. So thanks again and have a great day.